The largest study of midlife ever conducted, the MacArthur Foundation's National MIDUS study, found that only 10 to 20% of women experience what we call a true crisis. The rest, they're not falling apart. They're growing. They've just outgrown the identity they were living inside. Which brings me to you. Have you ever felt this? You built a life that looks exactly like what you wanted. So why does it feel like it belongs to someone else? Late at night, after the house went quiet, I'd open a private Google Doc on my laptop. Password protected, which looking back feels almost absurd. I was writing a romance novel under a pen name, and I told myself it wasn't that serious, just a creative outlet, just something fun I was doing on the side. But here's what I know now. That secret manuscript was the first honest thing I'd done in a long time. Not because running a medical practice isn't real. It is. And not because my marriage isn't real. It is. But for the first time in years, I was doing something just because I wanted to, not because someone needed me to, and not because it made sense on a spreadsheet, because something in me came alive when I wrote, and I had missed that version of myself. I published that novel, then 4 more, and something shifted, not because writing romance answered every question in my life. It didn't, but it gave me a new one. If I could do that while holding everything else I was already holding, what else had I been telling myself I couldn't do? What else had I been keeping password protected? Welcome to The Joy Shift. I'm Kiley Suarez, certified life coach, host of this show, former CPA, and the woman who manages her husband's urology practice in Puerto Rico while secretly writing romance novels at midnight. This show is for the woman who built something real and is starting to wonder why it no longer feels like enough. Today, I'm going to name exactly what's happening. By the end of this episode, you'll understand the specific reasons smart, accomplished women stay in lives they've outgrown. And not because they're weak, and not because they're ungrateful, because of 2 very specific traps. And I'm going to give you 2 things you can do this week, not to blow up your life, to start telling the truth about it. Here's the moment I want to talk about. You're in the car, long day behind you. You're doing the route you always do, thinking about the list you always have. And for a second, in the silence, something surfaces. And it's not sadness, and it's not burnout, and it's not that you're ungrateful or pissed off that, you're in this long line. It's more like you're standing in the middle of your own beautiful full life thinking, why does this not feel like enough anymore? And then almost immediately, you feel guilty for even thinking that. So you push it down. You tell yourself, I should be grateful. And you keep driving. And here's what the research on midlife identity tells us. Women who feel that gap aren't depressed. They're not experiencing a crisis. They've outgrown the identity they built their life around. The woman they became no longer matches the woman still living inside them. We're always evolving. Psychologist Abigail Stewart at the University of Michigan spent years tracking women across midlife. And what she found, published in the American Psychologist, is that women don't lose their identity in midlife. They revise it. She called it the midcourse correction. That feeling in the car isn't a problem. It's data. And the 2 things keeping you from listening to it are what I want to talk about today. Let's call the first one what it is, the gratitude bind. And here's how it works. You feel the gap, that quiet, persistent thing that doesn't have a name yet. And your first move is to silence it. You compare your life to someone who has less, and you remind yourself how lucky you are. You list your blessings. You decide the feeling must be the problem. And then what happens? The feeling goes underground, but it doesn't go away. That's the part we have to be honest about. Gratitude doesn't eliminate desire. It buries it. And buried desire doesn't become peace. It becomes irritability, numbness, scrolling at 11 p.m. because you're too tired to do anything meaningful, but too restless to sleep. Snapping at the people you love because some part of you hasn't had room to breathe. You may not be exhausted because you're doing too much. You may be exhausted because you're doing too many things that are no longer fit who you're becoming. And there's a difference, and it matters. Because if the problem is that you're doing too much, rest may solve it. You can take a long weekend and come back reset. But if the life you're living no longer has enough room for the woman that you're becoming, rest won't touch it. You can take a vacation and still come home to the same misalignment. I had a client, a woman I'll call Mara. She was also getting certified as a life coach, and she led her company's HR division for 18 years. Very talented, respected, and someone that everyone counted on because it was a pretty big responsibility, HR. And she told me in our first call, I keep waiting to feel grateful enough for this to feel like enough. But she wasn't ungrateful. She had outgrown something she'd built in her 30s, and nothing was broken. She had grown. So stay with me, because this is where it gets interesting. Before I go further, if what I'm describing is hitting close to home, I have a free 10-question assessment in the show notes called the Permission Audit. It helps you see which layer of this is keeping you stuck right now. It's 5 minutes. Take it after this episode. Okay, now back to it. The second trap is what I call the permission trap. And this one is sneaky because it doesn't look like a trap. It looks like being responsible. And here's what it sounds like inside your head. Once the kids are more settled, then I'll figure out what I want. Once work slows down, then I'll have time to think about this. Once I have a clear picture of what I actually want, then I'll do something. So you're waiting for permission, and you're waiting for it from people who are attached to the version of you they already know. So here's what I've learned. Nobody is coming with that permission slip. Not your partner, not your adult kids, not your work calendar, not the version of your life that already looks good from the outside. You have to write it yourself. And not because no one loves you, because the next version of your life cannot be approved by people who are attached to the version of you they already know. That doesn't make them wrong. It makes them human. The people who love you most may still prefer the version of you that is predictable, the version that says yes, the version that doesn't ask too many disruptive questions. But your becoming cannot be dependent on everyone else's comfort. Here's the other thing I want to name. Outgrowing something is not the same as failing at it. You did not fail because this no longer fits. You grew. The life you built may have held you beautifully for a specific season. It may have helped you become who you are. And we don't have to dishonor that to tell the truth. The container may simply be 2 sizes too small now. That doesn't mean you chose wrong. It means you are not the same woman you were when you chose it. And that is allowed. This is the shift that changes everything. Not either or, but a both and. I can be proud of what I built and curious about what comes next. I can love my family and need something that belongs only to me. I can be grateful and still want more. Both things true at the same time. I'm not asking you to walk away from everything. I'm asking you to stop requiring your desires to prove they're practical before you'll let them exist. Because here's what I know from what I've seen. Ignored desire doesn't go away quietly. It leaks. It becomes resentment, distance, control, that specific kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep touches. The feeling of being trapped in a life no one is forcing you to stay in, which somehow makes it even harder to explain. When you can simply tell the truth, even quietly, even privately, even just to yourself, something softens. You don't have to act on everything immediately. You don't have to have a plan, and you don't have to know the destination. But you do have to stop waiting to feel allowed. Here are the 2 things I want you to do this week. The first one is stop arguing with the feeling. Here's what that looks like in practice. Tonight, before you go to sleep, set a timer for 3 minutes. Take out a piece of paper or open your notes app. Write this at the top. What am I not letting myself want? Then write, don't edit it. Don't make it impressive or reasonable or something you could explain to someone else. Just let it be honest, like a stream of consciousness thing. Maybe it's rest. Maybe it's a creative project. Maybe it's to stop being the default person for everything. Maybe it's desire. Maybe it's 1 hour a week that belongs only to you. Maybe you don't even know yet. Write that down too. You don't have to act on it. You don't have to tell anyone, and you don't have to let it exist out somewhere outside of your head. Because knowing what you want is the first step. Not the plan, not the strategy, not the timeline, the want. That's where everything starts. The second one is write down one thing you filed under someday. Not what do I want to do with the rest of my life? That question will shut you down before you even start. Just this. What is one thing you've been telling yourself you'll get to someday? One thing. Write it next to what you wrote in step 1. That's your whole assignment this week. 2 pieces of paper, 3 minutes. You're not committing to anything. You're just finally writing it down. You built something real, the discipline that took, the sacrifice, the years of showing up when you were tired and no one was watching and you did it anyway, that mattered. And you're allowed to be more than the woman who built it. The woman who built your life was remarkable. And the woman who's waking up inside it, she has something to say too. Give her some room. If today names something you've been carrying, the permission audit is in the show notes. 10 questions, 5 minutes. It'll show you exactly which layer of the permission trap has been keeping you quiet. If this episode found you at the right moment, follow the show. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Because remember, knowing changes nothing and choosing changes everything. I'll see you next week. This is Kylie Suarez with The Joy Shift.